Welcome to Network Africa. Coming up on the program, the second black box is recovered from downed EgyptAir flight MS-804. Then the World Health Organization declares Liberia Ebola-free, but the authorities aren't leaving anything to chance. And later, the Mo Ibrahim Prize for African Leadership goes unawarded for the second year in a row, and it's attributed to substandard leadership. Thanks for joining us. I am BC Adebayo. Well, we'll begin with some bittersweet news coming from Egypt. According to Egyptian investigators, a second flight data recorder from the downed plane that killed 66 people on board has been recovered from the Mediterranean Sea. This comes one day after crews searching for the wreckage found the recorder of the first cockpit voice recorder. The two voice recorders have been handed over to the Technical Investigation Committee to carry out analysis and unload the voice conversations. Investigators had already started analyzing the first recorder after it arrived in Cairo overnight. EgyptAir flight MS-804 was flying to Cairo from Paris when it crashed on May the 19th between the Greek island of Crete and Egyptian coast. The Voice of America's Edward Yeranian has been monitoring these developments in Cairo and joins us on the program. Edward, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure, BC.
Now that the second black box has been found, is it still crucial to go on looking for the wreckage from flight MS-804?
Well, the investigation committee indicated that it was planning to continue. I haven't heard that they were planning to try to put together the wreckage, as is done sometimes when planes crash. They did that with the TWA plane that crashed off of Long Island back in the late 90s in the US. I suspect that they probably should have enough information to go by on the two black boxes, so-called black boxes. That being said, it's not clear. They haven't indicated that they were going to stop searching in any case.
How long do investigators anticipate it will take before they can say for certain what led to the crash of that flight?
Well, I've seen contradictory information about that. Certainly, if someone was willing to talk on the investigation committee, and there, of course, are French investigators participating in France's accident investigation arm, and the U.S. is supposed to send someone as well, since Honeywell made those black boxes. That being said, I've seen Egyptian officials on the media saying that it could take up to a year or at least months, and the formal investigation, I think, generally does take a year. But will they spill the beans before that if they actually find what happened? That's anyone's guess.
Well, are other countries like France, for instance, still assisting in investigation now that the most vital parts of the wreckage have been found?
Well, yes. France, the company, the ship that had the robotic sub, which was going down and found these black boxes, is a French company. France's BEA accident investigation wing is participating, and the French said they were going to send someone as well that was a specialist in analyzing these, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. So apparently the flight data recorder is more difficult to analyze and could take longer.
All right, thank you very much, Edward, for talking to us on the program.
My pleasure.
It's been about a week since the World Health Organization declared Liberia Ebola-free. However, authorities in the country are sounding the alarm in order to prevent a recurrence, especially since Liberia has one of the poorest healthcare systems in the world, which was made worse by the virus.
Just last week, the World Health Organization announced that Liberia had reached the end of active Ebola virus transmission. The declaration means it has been 42 days since the last confirmed patient tested negative for a second time for Ebola. This comes as a relief for many in the capital, Monrovia, but there remains fear of the virus and knowledge that the reality is major challenges remain.
We just have to be careful with those that survive from Ebola and prevent ourselves. Even though we are free from Ebola, but just still we have to carry on the treatment and things to wash our hands with soap.
Many families in Liberia have been victimized for concerning this Ebola thing. And we thank God that Liberia is Ebola free. I'm so much excited, and all my friends and family relatives are also happy about it.
Authorities say the country has strengthened its surveillance and response capacity as well as its laboratory system since the start of the outbreak.
I can tell you that Ebola will not re-emerge. But what we have demonstrated to the world since the big outbreak that was declared on May 9, we have the ability to detect it if there is a flare-up, and we have demonstrated the third time that we have the ability to respond with overwhelming speed. But as long as we have to deal with the reservoir amongst of ours, putting the likelihood that there could be new flare-up.
Liberia will now need to undergo an additional 90 days of heightened surveillance as the disease can live on in survivors' bodily fluids for months.
One thing we do know so far, since they declared Ebola free from the 3 countries, the last recent outbreak has not come from animal to man. It has been among people in the environment. So keeping our eyes open in the violence, helping us of our better, giving them treatment, providing for them, until a certain can answer that research question to know when it will end or if there is a way to treat the large reservoir of the virus.
Many victims still face stigma, and some have been ostracized by fearful communities affected by the disease.
It's also important that the government begin to camp these people. We know that it's capital intensive, but I mean the international community would have helped. I think that will help, instead of them leaving them to go into the community and they spread out. People don't know as to who they were, their status, and what have you, and then they just go about having sex randomly. And then before you make a amount, somebody is infested, and then it becomes a problem for other people.
The virus is spread by the bodily fluids of victims who bleed, vomit, or suffer diarrhea in their final stages.
Kenya is hosting 5 of the 10 refugee athletes who will compete in this year's Rio Summer Olympics as part of a new refugee Olympic team. The International Olympic Committee says it hopes the team will be a symbol of hope and a reminder of the magnitude of the global refugee crisis. The Voice of America's Lenny Ruvaga went out to Ngong, Kenya, where some of the members are training.
The phrase "Breakfast of Champions" has taken a new meaning here at the Tegla Lorupe Training Center for refugees. 5 of these athletes will be competing in Rio this August. The 5 refugee Olympians in Kenya are all from South Sudan. Rose Natike Lokonyen was just 4 years old when her family fled ethnic conflict in the eastern part of the country. She has lived at the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya for the past 16 years. She thinks of her 2 youngest brothers often. She had to leave them at Kakuma to come here to train.
I hope I will do well and get some golds or silver as well if I win. I really miss my sibling because since we came to Kakuma, we came together with our parents, but they left. Then I stay with them as well. And here, these are my 2 siblings whom I took them. They are the youngest one, and they're here. These are the 2 boys who are underage, and now I left them alone.
She says there are good days and bad days in training, but she was headstrong from an early age. She remembers her father punishing her for playing soccer.
Then I do escape going to the field. After coming to the field, he do beat me. In fact, I really miss him now because he had been, it's like he was just looking after me. So he didn't want me just to participate in any sport, but I insist myself doing that.
Still to come on Network Africa, the Mo Ibrahim Prize for African Leadership goes unawarded for the second year in a row. Please stay tuned.